Hello friends, I am Dr. Kuldeep Mohadikar. In this 20th chapter from my series Literary Pearls, I will present Keats as a writer of odes. Keats' genius forms the most perfect and adequate expression in these odes, which exhibits all the aspects of his poetry, such as sensuousness, Hellenism, medievalism, and romanticism, and so on. Keats, however, wanted to be remembered more for his longer poems. His longer poems, such as Hyperion, Endymion, Lamia, etc., etc. But these longer poems received much adverse criticism. So he turned to write short poems like Ode and Sonnets, in which he became immensely successful. Both the odes and sonnets are highly lyrical and intensely personal poems of Keats. The ode is originally the Greek gods and goddesses. This form of poetry was revived in the 18th century by Dryden and Pope, who used odes for invocation of good sense. Their odes are in conventional and impersonal style with arguments and preaching. Wordsworth was a pioneer in writing lyrical and personal odes, and his Ode to Immortality and Ode to Duty are highly personal and lyrical. But Keats carried it still further and made it a personal instrument of self expression most suited to his genius. Keats' three odes, Ode to Autumn, Ode to Grecian Urn, and Ode to Nightingale, may be called epitome of his lyricism. These odes were written in 1810. When Keats suffered several blows of misfortunes, one of his brothers, Storm, died after a long illness, and the other, George, immigrated to America. His beloved Fanny Brown, whom he loved most ardently, proved false to him. To these several blows of misfortune was added his own illness because he had developed symptoms of TB. Moreover, uh, his long ambitious poems like Hyperion and Endymion received much adverse criticism. It was at this time of mounting suffering and frustration, both in his personal and literary life, that he turned to the writing of odes. In the Odes and Sonnets, Keats turned from the Miltonic mode seen in Hyperion and Endymion to Shakespearean mode. In Shakespeare's poetry, he found what he called as negative capability. This means a capacity for objectivity and detachment in the midst of the borrowing personal miseries and sufferings of its understanding and controlling it. The odes attempt to attain this negative capability. In the Ode on a Grecian Urn, Keats tells the tragic dilemma of life with stoicism of tragic hero. The Ode to Nightingale is full of sensuous imagery, expresses the poet's yearning to be lost, the blissful world. He wants to forget himself into the pleasure of fancy and live this life when but to think is be full of sorrow. Through his imagination, he escapes into the world of Nightingale, which he calls the immortal bird living a life of eternal bliss. But the struggle to escape into the imaginary blissful world of Nightingale is inevitable doom. He is soon brought back to the harsh, searching reality because fancy cannot cheat long as she is famed to do. Thus, in Ode to Nightingale, Keats faces the tragic dilemma of short lived life. This imaginary world of the sensuous pleasure is short lived to transitory and deceptive. The same thing happens in Ode on a Grecian Urn, in which, while marveling at the finely wrought Greek figures on the urn, the escapes into the ancient mythical Greek world and forget reality for some time. But the inescapable sense of reality draws him back to the earth's miserable life, from which point the pleasure of Grecian Urn appears only as a waking dream. In short, in these two odes, we see the poet to clinch to the joy of ideal and imaginary world, and he is coming to the harsh real world full of misery and pain. The two worlds, the ideal and the real, hang in balance. Keats, however, takes no sides but states his tragic dilemma in intimate relation to himself. In these odes, there is mingling of forms, and then the language is hard and concrete. Clearly, word is functional and not merely decorative. Every phrase is a unit of thought. Every ode has beginning of stage setting, introduction of the main arguments in personified images and symbols, and an end of the resolution of the acceptance. So this is all about Keats as a writer of odes in this chapter. Thanks friends.